smoke is quieting down. Seems like we've got to a lot of the smoke. Dub, you got smoke?
Serious look. Throwing stuff, hitting glasses down. I don't care. I don't like none of that.
Yo, by the way, I want to address something because the internet's been mad this week.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow. About what now?
About, I think they mad at Joe, not me. About the collective reaction. I think they're mostly mad at Joe, but maybe the collective reaction to me mentioning Al Jazeera in Gaza last week. And they were saying,
your colleague.
Yeah, and they were saying, you people don't take anything serious. Kind of making it about y'all. And I think it's a little unfair. And I want to say that. I think it's a little unfair. I think part of it is context, you know, because people are like, we don't talk about this stuff. I don't come here to talk about global politics. That's not what I came here for. That's not what I took the job for. But the point is, like, I don't want people to think that I'm being silenced up here. Like, I be trying to bring stuff up and y'all be like, don't say that. I've never been edited. I've never been silenced. Now they're going to say that y'all made me say that too. They're going to be like, would I have preferred if y'all had said, like, sorry to hear that. Rest in peace. Move on. Maybe play some Gap Band or something.
Outstanding, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not going to.
What's going on, y'all? We are back with the files. Now listen, Marc Lamont Hill addresses the fans on behalf of the Joe Budden Network, and it's layered, okay? Now, y'all remember the internet was on fire after those clips of Joe Budden moving the topic along when Marc brought up something deeply personal, the deaths of his colleagues at Al Jazeera, okay? Y'all know, even I did a video about it because to me, the whole cast seemed insensitive, but Marc came back with his own explanation, all right? According to Marc, the Joe Budden podcast isn't the space for those types of heavy moments. Yes, he admitted he would have liked Joe to maybe play a song, maybe say my condolences, or even just acknowledge the loss, but he understands the platform isn't built for those kinds of pauses. Instead of pointing the finger at Joe, Marc turned the conversation on us, the fans, okay? He says we're the ones overanalyzing everything, reading too deep into moments that weren't even meant to be that heavy, all right? Now, but here's where it gets tricky, and I think Marc is fronting a bit, all right? Marc loves to play semantics. He brought up how if he were on ESPN, they'd never let him talk about Gaza. And when he's on Al Jazeera, people push him to talk about black issues. And when he's on the JBP, the expectation is that he has to touch on everything, okay? He made a strong point about him hating platforms that try to do it all. That sounded convincing. I was almost fully with him, right? Until he slipped and admitted he would have preferred them to at least say RIP. Sorry to hear that. Or even play a celebratory track like Outstanding from the Gap Band, right? Now that right there, that's where the contradictions start creeping in. Because Marc plays the loyal teammate role, right? He won't let the audience drag Joe on his behalf. That's not really in Marc's DNA, right? He's from Philly, okay? That's not really in their DNA like that. Yet, he still found a way to tell us what he would have liked to hear. He says he wasn't in his feelings, but then was he? To me, it's one of those two things can be true type moments, right? Marc could genuinely not feel disrespected and still feel a little acknowledgement wouldn't have gone a long way. All right? The bigger takeaway though is that Marc doesn't care as much as, we want him to. And that's the part that people might not want to hear, right? Then Queen's Flip, he jumped in saying that, he doesn't like speaking on politics as well because the fallout could be heavy. And sometimes silence is safer than speaking. And Marc doubled down, saying that he didn't take this job to be talking about global politics. His purpose on the JBP is to create interesting, engaging conversations every week. And we can't deny that's what the podcast delivers, right? Marc also made it clear that he doesn't like the pressure from people like those lawyers at Martha's Vineyard who question his presence on the Joe Budden podcast. All right? I feel that Marc feels like if they really supported him, they'd already know that he wouldn't risk tarnishing his own reputation or legacy. Okay? He reminded everyone that the deeper conversations, the stuff that people really want to hear and break down, exist on his show, Night School, okay? And in classic Queens Flip fashion, he broke the tension with a joke, pointing out how, their white counterparts always go silent when moments like this come up. Parks was quiet the whole time they was talking about these black, this black segment. You know what I'm saying? Flip even asked Mark straight up, if he would go to Gaza. And Mark was honest. It's not the safest choice. And honestly, I can't disagree with him on that. I wouldn't want Mark, to go to Gaza and something happened to him, or even if something didn't happen to him, I wouldn't want him to go there and be uncomfortable, man. That stuff is just insane. Right? But here's the thing that almost got lost in all of this. By the end, the cast did say rest in peace to Mark's colleagues. It wasn't the most deepish, tribute, that the fans might have wanted, but it was an acknowledgement. All right? Now I got some questions for you. Do you think Mark is protecting Joe Budden too much? Or is he genuinely unbothered by the lack of it? Now let me ask you guys some questions. Do you think Mark is protecting Joe Budden too much? Or is he genuinely unbothered by the lack of acknowledgement? Was Mark contradicting himself when he said he didn't care, but then admitted he would have liked at least an RIP? And should platforms like the Joe Budden podcast make space for heavier conversations? Or should they stick to the entertainment? If you were Mark, would you feel disrespected? Or would you let it slide the way he did? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And we'll be back with the files.
Who the fuck has a problem with Dub?
Yeah,
Dub
how
didn't
long
do
is it?
nothing to nobody. Dub ain't do nothing but drop that interview and shake the streets up. All
That
Dub
interview with
did was
Imani